Hi, my name's Rod Morgan with RPM Academy, and we're an accredited partner of the International Lean Six Sigma Institute. Welcome to our podcast. You might already know this is the Troy story, and I'm really excited today because I get to interview a close friend and someone I've known and respected a really long time, probably about 15 years or more, and that's Troy Lenihan. He is the senior director of business operations at Eden Valley Poultry. And Troy has told me over the years many stories about his career path, and I can guarantee you it's not a traditional career path. And we thought it would be a great chance to be able to have Troy share with you a little bit about his trajectory and his leadership views. So it's all yours, Troy. Welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Rod. Yeah, great question. When you think about the senior director of business operations at Eden Valley, most come to mind and say, okay, what do you do for that? What level, what degree, what type of training do you get? And to your point, Rod, my journey is quite interesting. I didn't have any of that. I actually left university to pay my student loan, and I started working at the poultry plant in Berwick. And at that point, I was just trying to pay my way, and I just showed up every day and I worked hard. And those are the two things that really were true to my core values. If I go out, show up every day, and if you work hard and do your part, employers will continue to have you to come back. And that's what I did. And I didn't know anything about anything we're going to talk about in terms of Six Sigma, continuous improvement, leadership. But that was my unique start, was working the back shift.
Wow.
At
So
the
you're showing up every day, but it's more than that. What was that first job really like for you?
I was at a further processing plant, so nuggets and breaded and further processed. So I did the back shift. I'm working 11 o'clock at night and working at 7 in the morning. I'm cleaning up waste and debris, and it's a sanitation crew. So not the most glamorous shift, but late night hours, different chemical steam. But it gave my first opportunity to say you need to be customer focused because in terms about around continuous improvement, being focused on the customer, it gave me that first experience. Starting the plant up with good quality, safe food programs, good clean equipment, things like that. So, and I realized that every role in the company matters in terms of that experience, right? Whether it's my role as a cleanup, whether you're the CEO, we all have a role to play in serving the customer, and that gave me a bunch of different respect for the front line and the work that all those people did. And really, every role matters, Ron.
Interesting. And you were actually one of those people, but you've mentioned to me in past conversations that you had someone in your life that kind of believed in you before you really believed in yourself in terms of what you were capable of.
Mhm.
Can you share with us a little bit about that?
I can, yeah, and surprisingly, it was my partner Amanda. So yeah, we've been 20. She's been along this whole journey, right? So I remember her saying, I would talk about these supervisor jobs coming up, and I would talk about things I would do better and things that frustrated me. And she would say, well, "Why don't you take that? Why don't you apply for that job?" And at that point, I probably lacked a bit of confidence, so I didn't believe her. I was like, "Oh, I'm not capable of being a supervisor," and it's probably leads back into all that training that we just referred to. But she was consistently my biggest champion, cheerleader in the background. Troy, you're capable of more. You're smart. She pushed me. She had her own program she called Triple E. I won't bore us with the details there, but her mindset was good. She pushed me to do more because she knew I was able to do more, and she believed in me. So the first job come up, I didn't get it. The second one did, and I did get it. And you know what? I'm glad she pushed me because I probably wouldn't be sitting here having this discussion
Well,
today if it wasn't for her,
right.
challenge me to be
And
better.
you've talked about leadership and what great leadership might really be, and you wanted to kind of nurture those traits in yourself. Maybe not even seeing a leadership role in the future for you, but how did you go about doing that? How did you develop your own spin on what good leadership was all about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first I almost went back to the things that maybe not confident that we just spoke about. So I just put a list on paper. I put it to paper. I thought, okay, what were the things that frustrated me that I said, I don't know why they do that in leadership. What were the things that I appreciate? What are the things I didn't appreciate? And I just created that list, right? And I created a list to say what mattered to me and what didn't matter. all the behaviors that discourage people, maybe favoritism or inconsistent application of rules or policies, things like that, or playing favorites. Those are things that people don't want to come to work. They don't want to work for good leaders. Also, the chain of command, just this top down approach, and you know, really just going and telling employees what to do and not getting their input, not asking. We do these opportunity and jobs every day. They're the best people in your organization to help you improve. So talk to your people. Listen to your people, respect your people, and that's a philosophy I've followed through my whole career. And then I accompanied that with a different mindset. That was an old school mindset, very do what I say, and people respond to that because it's authority, it's a chain of command, and they're the supervisor or whatnot. But I read this fantastic book called the by Tim Sanders called The Likability Factor, and it was all around positive energy and positive mood, and it was really about how do you operate as a leader to have people essentially like you and be approachable. And it isn't that you like them to do what they say you need them to do. It's about being visible, being approachable, trying to keep things in a positive mindset, and that just tune feels more productive. So those are a couple of key things that kicked off my leadership journey.
Well, that's fantastic. So you got your start at Eastern Protein Foods, and you got your first taste of kind of a leadership role. But what happened next?
Well, I thought I was on this great path, and I'm in this job that I wanted to do, and all of a sudden, the plant got closed. So, you know, as a young leader, the CEO, a new CEO, he gets in front. We're all in this room. We're having our first staff meeting. I'm so excited. Right, I'm in the front row. I'm up in the front row. I'm like, I can't wait for this. And he says, we're shutting down Eastern Protein. And I was just like, that was not the message I was looking for. So, uh, knowing what I know now, I understand why those decisions had to be made for the industry. Didn't feel that at the time. For 4 days, I was unemployed, and then I got an offer to job at the other sister plant, the primary plant. It was of course I went because I was unemployed, and it gave me another kick at leadership. So, and that was at the primary plant. So going down to take on a new system, it's controlled atmosphere stunning. So it's a different way to process the live bird, more humane way. And it was a new system, the first one in North America actually. And there's a lot of challenges with it, with downtime, troubleshooting, sensors, things like that. So uh, what they had asked me to do is one of my skills was problem solving. So basically, can you come down and figure this line out and see what that needs to do and how do you get it to run and engage with the people. So that's what I did, and it was a good for my leadership in terms of, I think one of the biggest things is, I was building confidence along the way. So this was another one to go to another plant where you didn't know any of the employees or the systems and have success. um, Helps build your confidence. It also helped you from a leadership perspective because these people, I was replacing a supervisor that was part of their daily interactions. There was a lot of people liked him on the floor. So I was seen as the bad guy that came to replace this
Mhm.
person, and so I looked for quick wins, and so that spoke really to the leadership and people development. And when I took those philosophies I talked about and applied them into that learning and started asking for their input, I created some quick wins. People thought different. People knew I operated different, and I gained that kind of trust in that team, and therefore we had some good success.
Right. So that kind of overlaps when I first met you. We met in a Lean Six Sigma black belt class, I believe, in Toronto at the Toronto Board of Trade of all
Yeah.
places, I think. Um, but in terms of your passion, the passion you have for Lean Six Sigma and continuous improvement, something that I share, when did you start applying those principles, tools, and methods? And kind of what did that look like at Eden Valley Poultry?
Yeah. So I always thought with continuous improvement mindset. I didn't know what to call it because I didn't have the background of the training, but I always thought about process improvement in my head. How do we get better? And that's a mind shift in the mindset. So in 2012, Eden Valley opened up. So where we are today, and October 5th was our first day. And in 20, I was running production. I'm an operations guy. I'm running the shop floor, the pack room. And our CEO says to me, Troy, we want to go down a continuous improvement journey. And I said, okay, what would you like me? Well, I think you're the guy. Uh, so, that happened. It was like, I think everything you bring and your passion, you're the one we want to put in this role and try and kick it off. So that was the first time I took my first manager job outside of production. So again, trying to build confidence, getting in front of you, engaging with you in Toronto, learning those tools, learning the ways and the excellence around the tools. And again, like also understanding the people skills and the leadership to build culture to drive those tools into the business, right? Training's training. If you can't apply it to the business, that's you're not really getting the wins out of it, right? So that was my first experience, and I realized that leadership isn't even just about production shop floor. It's about developing other leaders in the business too, especially with continuous improvement, because they're going to pick that up as the process owner and go do something with it. So building those leaders and those skills, that was my first experience with that.
Right. And I know both you and I have discussed this many times. I've heard you speak about it directly at conferences, how incredibly important it is for frontline engagement when it comes to operational excellence and continuous improvement. Uh, what kind of things are you doing at Eden Valley Poultry that are aligned with that mission you have in terms of engaging the front line?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question because one of the biggest lessons I've learned improvement, it doesn't come from the conference room. It comes from the front line. It comes from whoever is doing the activities every day. And I don't know if I'm biased because I come from there, but I am still to my time true to the front line. I'm on the floor. I'm engaging with people, and that's what matters. You ask people, we measure what matters. That's our operational thing. What matters to you in whatever stream or work you're doing, right? And when I ask people, what matters to you on the cut up line, they don't know right away. I'm pushing them, so I'm like, but how do you know you had a good day, right? So that's how I position it. At the end of the day, if you showed up to work and you're high fiving your team on the way to the door, what would that look like? How would a good day come about? And my experience, Rod, they start forming metrics. So they would say, well, we had the line full of chickens today. Well, that's good. Can we measure that? Yes, we can. Okay, write that down. What else? Well, we didn't make any defects, right? We had limited miscuts, right? Every time you put a blade, you could cut the wrong cut, could be a defect. So we can measure defects. We can measure our labor costs. They'd say, well, we didn't have any floor waste. We can measure floor waste. So they start forming these metrics around their line. And the sense of ownership that creates, I think, is really critical because if you can feel a part of a solution and there's a sense of ownership in my experience with that KPI or that metric, and they'll drive that, and that's more powerful than me going downstairs and saying, hey, I need you to measure this and this and then walk away. They don't know the why, they don't know the context, and they see it and they live it. So and you tie that into change management, you bring them for the journey, those changes get sustained, right? And
Right. So you've mentioned to me before about when it comes to change and engaging the front line, but more of a universal principle that you have was the 20-70-10 rule. That
yes.
might be of interest to our listeners. Your spin on the 20-70-10.
Yeah, it's a great and it's very simple. It's 20%. So anytime there's a change in your business, right? I call those the change champions. So who's the 20% that are raising their hand saying, "Yeah, Rod, put me on the team. I want to be all over this change." They're passionate, they're energetic. We all know who they are in our organization. The 70% are what I would say are the fence sitters. So they're the folks that are like, you know what? I don't know about this change. I'm not quite there yet. Maybe I don't have enough information, things like that. Maybe I'm not sure what the change is for. Don't know how I can influence it. Or, then you get the 10% that are the resistors. We all know who those are. And they're the ones that are purely against change. Like, that's never going to work. I'm not doing that. No one talk to me, that type of thing. So, the idea is if you can identify the 20, try and leverage the 70 in the middle. So get this 20 to pull the 74. Can you get that number to 25 and then to 30? Because make no mistake, in the middle, it's a tug of war. And this 10%, they're pulling the 70 back. Don't listen, Rod. They tried that before, never worked. Yeah, that continuous improvement, that's not going to work. No, don't change. This is the way we always did it. So those are the situations. So, and that's my philosophy to change management. Get them on board. Put the resistors in the project team. And I won't, I do that all the time. I put a 40-year employee, very stuck in their ways, as a resistor in a project. He was the operator machine that didn't work. He was on the project. We gave him a voice. He owned the change, and he was a champion of the process. So these are practices that I put in place that are effective and they work.
So you're on the started out you're hands-on the front line, then you took on the supervisory role, started developing and nurturing your own leadership skills, figuring out what was working, what wasn't working. Then you took on this major role from a continuous improvement perspective, which gave you a really broad understanding of the business from all angles, so to speak, including that of the customer. But what was interesting, I thought, was that you actually jumped from there into a sales role within the business as well. What was
Yeah.
that?
Well, it was interesting conversation because it was a bit of a curveball for me because I've always lived in what I would say the operations umbrella, I guess. So when the CEO says, I'd like you to take over the sales for the company, first I went, why? Because I had no experience in sales. And the way he positioned the discussion with me is, I don't need you to put orders in and sell chicken, and I need you to build the team. And that's what it was. So at that point, we had affiliated with some sister companies. There's a lot of cross-functional work between teams and companies, and we were trying to build our sales group. And the relationships with those interdependencies were not working, right? So um, my job was to come in and build the team. And the benefit thing is it gave me an incredible perspective on my business acumen into the business, and really the idea of the customer, right? So understand the true value of the customer, what they're willing to pay for, what they value, the problems they need to solve. And then eventually I went back into operations, and that skill set I learned on the sales and in that part of the business just helped me be a better senior director today. So
Fantastic.
it's very interesting. And I know obviously by default learned lots about the sales, but it wasn't that they couldn't sell the chicken. It's that the team couldn't operate together. So again, another test of leadership and building good teams.
And you did such a good job on the sales side that they bounced you into a director of business operations now. So talk
Yeah,
about getting your hands dirty in almost everything that's going on,
yeah,
especially at Eden Valley Poultry.
yeah. I like to say that my job's easy. I take the chickens in, put them in the best sale, the most efficient way, and then everybody's happy.
So what really is your job today, if you had to describe it to someone?
Yeah, so yeah, senior director of ops. So I oversee basically all the operations from so when the live bird comes to the plant through till we ship the bird out the other door. So the operations side of it, the shipping team, the sanitation team, that goes back to my roots. So still living and breathing sanitation on a different level. So I have a sanitation team, but I also oversee maintenance and automation, which is really cool in my role because we're doing a lot of process and equipment. So I oversee that side of the business, and of course, I drive all of our continuous improvement initiatives. So um,
Well, one of the things I know, as you know, we're focused, RPM Academy is focused on professional and personal development, which is, a huge body of knowledge. And these are exciting times that we find ourselves in. I think about resilience, personal business resilience, group, community, and career resilience. And in the past, I mean, we go back to my father, perhaps, maybe even your father. Specializing in that one thing, that one vertical. It could be accountant, it could be plumber, it could be anything for that matter, and that would be it. And then you'd have these, slightly broad knowledge on other topics, both personal as well as professional. So that would be referred to as T-shaped skills.
right.
And then along comes this notion that we need to have cone-shaped skills. We've got to have deep vertical knowledge in multiple areas. And that made me think of resilience. And then, of course, I think about your career path and kind of mine even is that a jack of all trades,
Hmm.
perhaps a master of none of them for that matter. But
Fair.
but I found it's knowing inventory, supply chain, distribution and logistics, manufacturing ops, accounting has always served me well. Um, so that's kind of what I see in you. And if everything that you've gone through and where you find yourself at in the middle of your career, whereas I'm kind of looking in the rear view mirror now, I see exciting times ahead. What kind of advice would you offer to young professionals in today's world?
I think it starts with people, and that's the thing. It's always people. Is it the process? In my experience, anybody can improve a process. It's getting the people to go down and do something different, right? So if I go back to when I was 20 years old in sanitation, again, operational excellence doesn't start with the strategy. It starts with respect for people, right? Respect the front line, listen to their ideas, and give them some ownership of improvement, right? Let them go home and tell their families that they were a part of a solution that saved X to the company or improved the process about this. They can feel good about that, right? Again, I would highly recommend, and I'm not criticizing office jobs, their jobs all matter. But I say here, one thing that makes money, selling chicken. That is the only thing that makes money at this plant is selling chicken out the back of the door. And we service some high level customers. So I don't see the chicken before it goes out the door, but the front line does. So we need to invest. We need to help that group. We need to train them. We need to make sure their voice is heard. We need them to feel engaged and inspired. We need to measure what matters because they are the ones that see the product before it goes out. Costco, known for high quality, right? A Costco buyer, a new buyer, goes all across Canada. He's going to every supplier. He's looking at their products. He ends on here at the East Coast. He comes into our plant. He comes through. We do our thing. He looks at me and goes, Troy, amazing job. You guys have some of the best chicken in Canada. I said, that's awesome. Please go tell those people. And that's what he did. I said, at the end of the day, you know, I appreciate that. But it doesn't, I'm not the one down there packing it. And just like I said, every role matters. Every role down there matters. Peer to peer accountability. It doesn't mean every employee we have here is good, but I can tell you if someone's doing something wrong in the trade line, their neighbor's going to go, that can't go out to the customer. That's the culture we build here. And that's my job in the end of the day is to drive and build a culture. Behaviors. How do we want our people to show up? How do they live to our values, right? And culture is everybody pulling in that one direction. So I think that meant a lot to them, right? The fact they go, how they came out to me after and go, Troy, the Costco bar came and told us how great a job we were doing serving their customers. They felt really good about that. I could have selfishly took the win and been like, yeah, that's all me. Thank you. Perfect. Pat myself in the back. But I don't do that work, right? Our success comes from everybody working together. I thought that was a pretty cool story.
Yeah, and that seems like a continuing or a constant theme in not only this discussion, but how we've exchanged information over the years that, just to paraphrase you, Operation Excellence doesn't start with systems or strategy. It starts with respect for people. And I think your journey personally really brings that to life in a powerful way. You went from the sanitation shift to the night shift, getting your hands dirty, so to speak, to supervisory, to leadership roles, and then leadership roles in multiple areas of the operation. So you're the epitome for me of a continual learner. You're like a sponge. You're always
Yep.
absorbing new things. Before we started today, you were talking about a new AI project that you're involved
Yeah,
in, a big capital investment. We won't talk about it today, but I can see how you're getting your hands dirty now on
absolutely.
the AI side of things, and important as that is, because it is transforming the way we do business. So I do want to thank you for your time today, Troy. It's been a real pleasure for me to have a chance to introduce you to other people. I've always had taken great pleasure in our conversations. You're an exciting, passionate young professional, and it's been a pleasure for me to have a chance to work with you and know you.
Thanks so much, Roy. I appreciate the time to
Well,
tell the
all the best
story.
to you and the team at Eden Valley Poultry, and hoping you have a very safe, successful, and rewarding year ahead.
Perfect.
Take
Thanks
care.
so much, Roy. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.